Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about a very exciting topic, especially to many of us who personally collect Pu-erh and keep it for the long term, aging, storing Pu-erh tea. And that is the taste profile of aged Pu-erh. Now through my studies, this was a very complicated and difficult subject to learn more about. One, because there's not a lot of large access to aged Pu-erh in the market, and unfortunately it can get very expensive, and there's a lot of fake and fraudulently produced aged teas or teas that are just mislabeled. So that's one reason I've been very fortunate and lucky and was able to return to Danong for 2 years to continue my studies and have access to aged Pu-erh and keep a very detailed journal about those experiences. And as I always say, the best form of study is actually tasting and experiencing those teas so we can add them to our knowledge bank or experience and grow upon them. And so this is going to be a very fun topic to cover. And one thing I have done over the last few years is I've kind of categorized aged Pu-erh into 3 phases. You have phase 1, which is new tea. But that's between 10 and 15 years or younger. You have phase 2, which is semi-aged Pu-erh. And then you have aged Pu-erh. Aged Pu-erh is anything over 30 to 40 years. Now, at first, I wanted to have a very definite number of what is a new tea, how many years, and what is an aged Pu-erh, how many years. But I found that extremely difficult to do because Pu-erh tea is very complex and open-ended. And the reason I have a 10-15 year mark is because depending on how the tea was stored or aged, you can have dry storage, which would make the tea, yes, it would preserve its original personality and taste profile, but it will age slower. And if you store one of those same tea cakes in a humid environment or wet environment, it would accelerate the aging process to make that tea maybe mellow out or mute some of the personality, but get that really nice, well-rounded age profile. That's why I said 10 to 15 years or younger is new tea, and anything over 30 to 40 years and up is aged Pu-erh. It really depends on the aging process. And so I also was very lucky to be able to try and have access to a lot of famous teas that many of you may have heard of or know of. One of them is Evening Fragrance Jade, that's the Jingmai from 1998, Truly Simple Elegant from 1996, which is from Yiwu Mountain, Millennial Nano from the year 2000, and many more famous mountains and very, very old aged Pu-erhs. Of course, I kept a lot of notes and experiences along the way. In the beginning, it was tough. At first, I was so excited to try these teas. And then I started to notice something very strange. I would drink teas like Truly Simple Elegant and Evening Fragrance Jade and then Millennial Nano, sometimes day after day in close proximity. And I noticed these teas had a very similar taste profile, even though they were from very different mountains. So I started to think, why is this taste profile so similar? And that taste profile was plum, orchid, wood, stone fruit, almost like a wooden sauna. Very comfortable, of course. And so I started to kind of keep notes, and then we started to pass around to our friends and colleagues, and they would join us and drink teas with us. And then one time we drank a tea from 1999. That was from Yiwu, and we've been very spoiled to drink some teas, Truly Simple Elegant, from Yiwu as well. But this Yiwu from 1999 was different. It had a smoky characteristic. And my friend drank it, and they asked me a question, and they said, I feel this tea does not have a strong Yiwu characteristic. And I was kind of surprised by this comment, because I started to think to myself, what is a strong Yiwu characteristic? And what is a strong Yiwu characteristic as it ages? Does the taste profile become more like the distinct mountain or region it's from as it ages? Or does it become less like the mountain region as it ages? So I started to realize what different mountain and how do the personalities change, because now I'm reflecting back on the Jingmai Yiwu Nano. They had a very similar taste profile. And for someone to drink a tea from 1999 and then say this doesn't have a strong Yiwu characteristic, what does that mean? And so that's kind of why I started to come up with the phases of tea and the taste profiles you can look for as they change. First thing we need to look for as we're drinking and learning about aged Pu-erh is, have we actually tried authentic aged Pu-erh? And what does authentic aged Pu-erh taste like? and I'll share with you a story. This was about a year into Danong, and I had the opportunity to try the Shaguan Teabing, right? And this is the Shaguan iron pressed cake, and it was so tasty. And this is dry stored, very heavy compression, and we steeped it like 20 sometimes. The tea shop, and Donzo, my partner from Tea Book, was visiting me. He was doing the expo in Las Vegas. He was coming. He wanted me to travel with him. I said no problem. So I took some of that Shaguan Teabing that we steeped out, and I put it in my tumbler. And we went back to the hotel, and Donzo and we were talking, and I said, "You want to try some?" And I gave him some. And he said, "This is phenomenal tea." And I said, "Yeah, this tea is quite old, maybe 30, 40 years." And he looked at the leaves, and he said, "No, that's not aged poor. If it was 30 or so years, the leaves should be black and dark." And I started to think, well, I'm so confused. I know this tea is 30 some years old. Why is he saying it's not? And then I realized most people who have had an opportunity to taste aged pour is maybe ripe pour, wet stored pour, or tea that is claiming to be much older than it is, maybe through some wet storage method or wet piling, making the leaves very dark. But in dry storage, the leaves do not become black. They do not become very dark. They keep that natural, vibrant, healthy, brown-like color. So this is about a year in, so I started to really be confused and trying to say what is authentic, what is true, and then I realized it's very, very gray. There's no real black and white with pour. So first we need to make sure, have we had the opportunity to try real old pour tea? And the next thing is, what is high-level, low-level teas? So I had to ask my tea master. I asked her, I'm very sorry, I have a very stupid question for you. I said, recently I've drunken a lot of semi-aged pour. Jingmai, Eden French Jade, Truly Simple Elegant, Millennial Nano, and I feel they all have a very similar taste profile. So will teas like Mountain Oasis, if they were aged 15, 18 years, have a similar taste profile to that of Famous Mountains? And so she was kind of shocked, saying, what? She says, different level tea has a different taste and level experience. A low level tea can never turn into a high level tea with aging. So just doing aging, you can't take a low level and become a high level. And you have to stay in that level. So high level is going to become more predominant, increase more drastically, develop more drastically. Low level tea is going to have a very small trajectory. It's going to have less change. But many high quality teas and Famous Mountain teas will turn into a very similar flavor profile with age. And this has more to do with the ancient arbor material or old tea tree material. There's a characteristic those type of tea trees have as they age. Also, another thing I wrote down in my notes that I thought is very interesting, and a subject that is very difficult to speak very professionally on yet, is because it's still very new, is the way pour tea is processed today and the way pour tea was processed before is very, very different. A lot of the techniques from these very famous cakes like Shaguan Teabing, Eden Fragrance Jade, Truly Simple Elegant, I don't really want to use the word haphazardly. Obviously, there was attention and care put into producing those teas, but maybe there was not strict cleanliness or factory standards when producing the tea. They were picked, they were pressed, they were put in a bag, and that's why there's a little bit more inconsistency in those tea cakes. If you're fortunate enough to be able to drink a tea cake like Truly Simple Elegant and drink that tea from different tea cakes or even different tongs, you'll notice the taste profile will be very, very drastic and very broad. But nowadays you have certain companies like even like Danone where they're putting in stronger and stricter cleanliness practices and standards when processing the tea, which is creating a tea and quality that has really never been seen before in history. So a lot of what we're seeing in pour in today's tea cakes and processes we have never seen before in the past. So pour tea is still going to be showing us a lot of new things as they age. So this is also very exciting because we can look forward to new things that we haven't really seen in past famous aged tea cakes. And now I want to kind of break down the three phases of aged pour, or the taste profiles I categorize them in. So new tea, this is anything 10 to 15 years or younger. These teas will contain and maintain their very unique and regional taste. So you'll be able to taste the mountain taste, you'll be able to distinguish the characteristics from certain regions a lot easier. These teas will be more floral, more sweet, more lighter, more vibrant, more energetic, more bright, and that really nice lingering sweetness. These are going to be easier to discern where these teas are coming from. The second phase is semi-aged pour. Now, this is kind of a big gap in between. This can be anywhere from 10 up to 30, 40 years. Semi-aged pour teas, if they're from a good quality raw material, Famous Mountain, old tea trees, ancient arbor, what I have noticed in my experience is these teas will develop a orchid, plum, or have hints of the original taste. You also will pick up wood, stone fruit, or even kind of like a wooden sauna. It's kind of hard to describe. And you'll be able to pick up hints of the tea cake's original personality. So that's the original regional taste. Whether it's a Famous Mountain or other area, you have hints of that personality still there. If it is dry stored, even more so. Wet storage or human storage will kind of mute down some of the personality of the exact regions the tea is originally from. But dry storage will kind of preserve those. The last phase is aged pour. Now this is tea anywhere from 30 to 40 years and up. And when tea gets into this classification, tea sometimes isn't even really referred to as tea. It's more so referred to as medicine. Sometimes you can smell teas that are older than 30, 40 years, and just smelling the leaves in the teapot after brewing, you might ask, is that Chinese medicine? Because the Chinese medicine characteristic and aroma is so strong, and even that in the taste. And sometimes you can develop almost a thicker liquid after the tea has been brewed. So those are my three classifications. And then of course in aged pour, it can be almost indistinguishable where the tea was originally from. So that original region taste, the original mountain taste. So as time goes on, the exact personality and region of the tea cake will kind of decay over time, but you kind of get it balanced out with this really unique, developed, mature tea taste. So Famous Mountain pour teas also are at a higher level, so they may be more tasty, a little bit more comfortable, but it's not to say smaller bush teas are bad. There's a lot of very famous cakes, probably Shaguan, Teaware, Hong Ying. There's no saying that those teas are from old tea trees. They probably are not, actually. Most likely they're from small bushes, maybe some old trees blended in. And how we can kind of put this into perspective, like my tea master was saying before, a high level tea becomes a high level tea. A low level tea can never become a high level with aging alone. And so if you have small bush teas, as I mentioned in my previous video about investment, why I don't invest in small bush teas, because that directory of age is a lot more slow, right? Where if you have a tea that's from old trees, ancient arbor, the directory is much higher. The taste, the feeling, the aromatics are developing so rapidly because there's a more abundant amount of nutrition and minerals, which will inevitably make a more complex and enjoyable aged pour. So that's something else to keep in mind. And also with aging, sometimes we encounter teas when they're young, they're very aggressive, they're very bitter, they're very astringent. And so sometimes those teas won't develop to our liking or enhance their flavor profile. Instead, maybe all they'll do is kind of mellow out over time. And so in my own personal experience, that's why I'm looking for more older tea trees that are maybe more light, they're more deep and comfortable, but very, very subtle. Because I notice those teas will get enhanced and developed over time, and I'm looking forward to the future of that tea and anticipating that new taste rather than a tea that's too aggressive and uncomfortable in the beginning, and then what I'm looking forward to is it to mellow out. So I'd much rather look forward to something that's developing. And that's why I say it's very important to always buy tea you understand and enjoy from the beginning rather than buying tea in hopes it will turn into something you like in the future that you don't like when you drink it. So this is the same concept across the board when we're talking about aged teas, investing teas, buying teas, or anticipating the taste of aged pour. So I just thought that was kind of fun to be able to share that with my experience. I've been very lucky to try a lot of aged teas, kind of in close proximity, and it's just a fascinating subject. So those are some of the phases I broke down and the taste profiles you can anticipate with some of your teas, but we're learning and discovering new things in pour all the time. The processing's changing. Companies are coming out with new ways to blend and process and press tea, so it's very exciting to see all the new types of aged pour tea profiles we'll see in the years to come. Of course, if you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to me and I'll be happy to answer. Thanks so much.